Right. So, very good evening, everyone. And as Dr. Mayrakchi has already introduced about the seminar series. So, we have today Mr. Anand Jha with us, and he's the Chief Design Officer at Myco. And he's an alumnus of IIT Delhi, and he has a long experience working in this domain of product management and the design. So, he's working currently in a very specific domain of using gamification tool and designing companion robotics for children. This is a very niche domain. We found it's very interesting that if he could come and talk about this particular domain with us and also share his experience and the opportunities that lie in this domain. And so I request Mr. Jha to uh, uh, please continue with this and share his experience on this domain.
Thanks, Dr. Mayank. And should we get started?
Yes. So, so if you could take us through the PPT that you had shared with me, and then we'll have a question and answer towards the end.
All right. Yeah.
Mr. Jha, I think you're muted, sir.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, indeed, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So to give you a brief summary of what I'm doing with the space, companion robotics for children, it's a very nascent field. The space has evolved in the past 4 or 5 years, and before that there were kit robots that used to exist, and at this point in time there are over 150 offerings globally around companion robotics for children. So a little bit about me. I currently work as Chief Design Officer at Myco. I had product design, gaming, content, and partnership verticals there. And I bring about 14 years of work experience around product management and product design. And that experience is divided almost equally between multinationals and high growth startups. So when we talk about robots, we essentially, like a lot of us, go back to Isaac Asimov novels, where we generally think of a humanoid kind of an object, which is supposed to behave like a human being and will have intelligence like a human being, except that it's largely used to solve things that require physical effort. And then our exposure with robots also has been through industrial robotics, right, where you'd have these tasks that are generally done by human but are extremely dangerous or can be extremely fatiguing. These could be tasks around mining or welding components or large scale paint shops, etc., where you'd have specific industrial robotic components that assemble vehicles or paint vehicles or they weld vehicle parts and so on. And the fact that they can do it predictably and reliably over a long period of time makes them useful over humans. So these generally are two very different categories, and the first one, we think of robots purely as a human-like object. And the science fiction also talks about how robots will start replacing humans in some form or another. And then at actual reality, you really don't see a lot of humanoid robots. What we generally see are slightly more advanced machines which can do tasks which are extremely predictable with high degree of accuracy. However, there's not much intelligence to tasks that are not predefined or pre-configured, right? And that's largely been our understanding about robotics. However, you know, between these two extreme ends, there's this entire space uh, of a companion robot that has come about. So uh, around 20-25 years ago, Sony was experimenting with a companion dog robot called Aibo, and since then the space has exploded. You have various offerings now which are either a very niche product. If you see towards the right of the screen, you have this robot called Moxie, which is largely meant for children who have issues trusting adults or have challenges articulating themselves. Moxie generally becomes a very helpful companion for such children. You have Anki Vector, which is an extremely popular robot in US, which is largely a desktop companion. So for people who work alone in homes, and this has found a lot of receivers in the work from home environment, you have this robot which generally moves around in your desktop and you can make them do things. However, they have their own temperament also to some extent. And then you have Jibo, which is meant for seniors who are living alone, and it helps them stay mentally agile and ensures that any medical emergency or SOS can be handled for seniors through a robot like this. So this comes in the space of companion robotics. You also have consumer robotics as a space which is meant for, again, these are robots that are used in a personal domestic sort of setup, but they are not so much used as a companion, right? They are meant to do very defined specific tasks in a household. So you have something called Roomba or iRobot, which basically does cleaning of the house. So you can have a robot basically that goes around the house and mops the floor or vacuums the floor or does both actually. So these are again in the space of consumer robots, but they are not really classified as companion robots. And you of course have industrial robots, which are basically robots deployed in shop floor. You also have now robots which get deployed in which get deployed in e-commerce a lot, in the industrial warehousing kind of setups, where moving of packages or sorting of packages in a warehouse, all of that is taken care of by the robots. So this is a space that's come about. And if you look at consumer robotics as a category, so the category is extremely spread out, right? You have entry-level products that can be retailed as less as 600 to 700 rupees, which are not really robots. They basically are objects, toys that have pre-programmed lighting states and pre-programmed motion states. So once you click on the button and you switch it on, you can basically make them do very specific kind of movements or program them to do very specific kind of lighting states, etc. And these toys, to some extent, we've all played with when we were kids, and now you see marginally better memory available in such toys and better interactions available in such toys. However, they have very limited intelligence per se. So if you tell them to do something that is not defined or configured as preset, then the likelihood of them being able to execute this is very small. We call these jesters. They're basically toys that you can play with for 15-20 days, and they do those same 10 things all the time, and then eventually you would get bored and moved on. Then you have the creators. These are basically kits that you can put together in program. So around 15 years ago, there was this particular robotic kit called Lego Mindstorm, and that almost took the world by surprise by giving the ability to program robots in the hands of kids, right? And then the programming interface was extremely simple. You just had to stack logical codes, and there were preset sequences by which the programs could be written, and you had to assemble the components together, and the robot would do whatever you program it to do. So these kit robots were useful in terms of teaching programming to children in schools and in colleges, and they became extremely popular in segments where people could afford them because they became very expensive. And as and when market expanded, you had this slightly cheaper version of these robots. Now you have a Wonder Workshop Dash, or you have MBot Maker Block, or a Ubisoft RC. All of these are basically kits that can be put together. There is a central microcontroller that can be programmed. There'll be a small display, and there'll be a programming interface by which you can connect and program it. And this programming interface is extremely simple to use, so that the learning curve is very less, and a child can start programming as soon as they get a demo of it. But yeah, these are basically programming kits. In that sense, the intelligence in the robot is whatever intelligence you code it for. I mean, beyond that, there isn't an inherent amount of intelligence that is brought by the robot on the table, right? And so beyond this, you had the entertainer robots. I call them entertainers because we are slightly moving closer to the companion category, right? And where you have Anki, Cosmo, or Pixie, or Novi, or Marty, all of these are robots that almost function like a pet, right? That they will be in your domestic environment, and you can tell them something and they will respond to it. And the response could be predictable and unpredictable depending on the personality of the robot. So it's basically like saying that no two dogs or no two cats are same. Similarly, no two Ankis will have the same response for the same stimulus at the same point in time. It might differ. And these robots start coming closer to the category of artificial intelligence, where depending on the kind of interaction they've had with the user in the past, they are able to build a lot of understanding of how this product is supposed to respond to similar kind of queries or questions in the future. And more and more people start using this, the more intelligence, the more it becomes better in terms of answering questions that it was not able to answer before, or showing reaction to stimulus that was not showing reaction to before. So this category starts moving closer to USD 1500 or so, and Ankis typically get retailed for around 150 to 200 US dollars. Eventually, then after this is a set of three separate categories that we sort of clustered together, because Miko becomes a superset of all of these in some ways. So you have Moxie, which is basically a companion robot for children who have dyslexia and other specific medical issues. And this generally helps them cope up with those issues on a day-to-day basis. And you have tablets like FireTab or LeapPad, which basically have a lot of content for children, very similar to how adults use iPad, except that all of this content that you will have on that tablet is predominantly for children. There are basically no robotic capabilities. So largely these are not robots, but when you consider a consumer robotic space, they tend to have the same mind share of the customer than the robots have. And typically when a parent is making decision for robots, they also consider these products because all of them display some degree of intelligence, though they do not display any motion abilities as such. So ability of a LeapPad or a FireTab to find appropriate content for the child and to be able to show it depending on what has been the experience in the past is where the intelligence part comes in. It doesn't come so much in terms of movements, etc. And you have now Alexa, Echo Dot, or Google Home, which take up conversational content, and they are fairly intelligent in terms of responding to queries that people ask them. So Miko roughly sits in the intersectionality of a matchmaker, a seeker, and a Samaritan. These are again marketing terms that we use, but largely it has a lot of apps that the children can play with. You can talk to Miko, and Miko also can be used by children under duress to some extent, and it has motion abilities on top of it. So it moves around and does other things. I'll probably show you videos of how the product has evolved and where it is at this point in time. So yeah, this is the first Miko that we brought out around 2016. I'll just quickly play the video too.
Good morning, Rowan. Good morning, Rowan.
Is the audio going through? Are you able to listen to the sound?
Yes,
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Okay.
Good morning, Rowan. Good morning, Rowan.
Good morning, Miko.
Veggies are good for you. Tell him, Miko.
You can't be a superhero without having vegetables.
You are my friend, companion. Make me feel like
Bye, Miko.
champion.
Miko, I'm back. Mama, which is the tallest mountain in India?
I don't know. Ask Miko.
Mount Kanchenjunga.
Thank you, Miko.
Under the trees, together in starlight.
Wow! Trees are the lungs of our planet. It's time for your football match.
Oh yeah.
I know you'll be there for me.
Hey, Miko. Today I scored 2 goals.
Ah! Congratulations!
I know you'll be there for me.
Sirius is the brightest star.
Are you serious?
So this was the first product that we released in 2016, and since then there've been a lot of learning lessons in terms of how to put something that looks extremely simple but technologically is extremely complicated. Getting conversation experience right, ensuring that all the actions otherwise on apps, etc., we call these apps talents, happen very smoothly. The motion on various surfaces, right? So the way it moves on carpet and the way it moves on floor, moving it directionally, all of those are extremely complicated things that we had to eventually sort of nail out. And then we had another offering, which is a much better version of the previous product. This was Miko 2. And with this, we also expanded in other markets. So what happens in those markets is language becomes a big variable, and the kind of conversation experience that we have and the way we respond changes drastically. So if you sell a product in US, the kind of conversations that you'll have there about the same topics that you'll have in India, and all the way to the accent of the bot and towards mannerisms, all of those things also change. Just let me quickly show you.
Adele, honey, there's a surprise for you.
Surprise!
Hey, sweetie. Meet Miko.
Hello, Miko. You can call me Ed.
Hello, Ed.
Next talk.
Hey, what are you doing?
Can you help me with my tables?
Tables, furniture with the flat top and...
Oh no, Miko. I'm at multiplication tables, like a table of 4.
Sure, 4 times 1 is 4. 5 times 3?
15?
7 times 5?
35.
8 times 4?
38. No, 32.
12 times 12.
144.
Good job. It's time to party.
Good dinosaur woke up in the morning.
Hey, he's not a good dinosaur.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, sweetie.
Why isn't he a good dinosaur?
Because he didn't brush his big teeth. 99.
Bye, Dad. Wow, it's a beautiful rainbow.
What are the colors of the rainbow?
Red,
Orange,
yellow,
green,
blue,
indigo.
violet.
That's absolutely right, Dad.
With conversational learning, Teleconnect, Privacy Eye Patch, and an ever-growing host of talents like games, activities, and much more. Nico 2. Open up your child's world.
Yeah, so Nico 2, in terms of the kind of expressions you see on the bot and the amount of content that we have on the bot, and to some extent the conversational clarity, etc., and the accuracy of the conversation, all of that improved significantly in Nico 2. And this was launched around 2 years ago, and we are now in the process of
Adele, honey,
we are now in the process of launching the next version, which is the Nico 3. So with Nico 3, we'd be launching around 8 languages, including Arabic, Spanish, LATAM, and Spanish mainland, Mandarin, and similarly there'll be a host of applications that will come on Nico. We're trying to ensure that for each geography we have applications that are relevant to the children there. And this is about Nico, I think, largely. Any questions or anything in specific that you'd want me to ask about the product or in general about the space, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anand.